Apes and apettes, welcome back to the channel. We're going to talk about a couple things here in this video. First and foremost, it's going to be some of the option activity for this week. You do have the potential to see a decent move higher based off of some of the option activity if this week continues to be as bullish as what you've seen on Friday. And I want to break down some of these numbers for you, as well as take a look at that very large option expiration that is going to be not this week, but next week. This week is kind of different in its own way because a lot of the option activity is concentrated really within the next dollar or two, which is kind of where we were at about a week ago. So I think that's key, and that is something we're going to talk about. As well as that, I did get some comments on the last video basically saying, how would a no on March 14th, how would a no answer for this vote cause a short squeeze and pretty much instantaneously. So I do want to go over that as well, and just touch up on some other key things that you need to know heading into this week for AMC stock, guys. So if this is your first time to the channel, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you, number one, like to make money, if you like AMC, you like this community, or you just want to grow your net worth, guys. This is the place to be. So without any mumbo jumbo, let's get to it. So AMC, let's take a look at first the option activity, because that is going to be something that is definitive, right? Something we know about. March 14th, it's the most important thing right now for AMC and could drive the stock much higher or much lower, but we don't ultimately know how that vote is going to play out. We do know that if you get a yes, that AMC shareholders approved this combination of AMC and APE and all the other smaller initiatives and proposals that are proposed within this vote, nothing's going to happen at least until April 27th. So you're going to have a while, right? If this comes in as a no, well, we're going to talk about exactly how that would cause the short squeeze. But the option activity for this week, guys, what is very interesting about what you are seeing here, if you first and foremost do go ahead and take a look at the Stocko tracker data, just to give you an overall sense of the numbers here, you have about 24,000 calls that are currently in the money, 93,000 calls that are out of the money. If you take a look at the in the money puts, that's at 40,000, out the money puts at 133,000. So it's not a huge option expiration as far as numbers, and comparing this to next week, 75,000 calls in the money next week, 625,000 calls out of the money, 258,000 puts in the money, and 903,000 puts that are out of the money. This week is very small in comparison, but when you actually take a look at where the call option activity is concentrated, it is between the $6 strike and the $10 strike, but more specifically the $6 strike and the $8 strike. So the $6 strike is in the money currently. You got about 8,500 for open interest. At the $6.50 strike, you have 9,500 for open interest. And at the $7 strike that is just out of the money right now, AMC closed at $6.60 per share. You do almost have 12,000 for open interest. This controls about 1.2 million shares. Now, the interesting thing about this is last week and the week before that, when AMC was breaking above $7 per share, there was still a week or two until expiration. These options were more expensive. So in theory here, right, this is just basically how it works. You got to factor in the break even. So if you're buying these options, let's call it the $7 strike, for $24 right now, well, it's a $7 strike. So your actual break even, where AMC closed the week where you would actually break even and make money, would be $7.24 per share, right? So these options, they need to be hedged out for by the market makers at least $7.24 per share, because if you are winning, the back end would be losing on this option. Pretty straightforward, especially if you've been in the markets for a while and you know how options work. Now, a week or two ago, these options were probably going for $50 or $50, $70, or maybe even $100 or more. I don't recall what they were going for. Point is, they were a lot higher, so your break-even price for market makers was also a lot higher. So a lot of these probably didn't get hedged out at all. And even for the 650 strike, right now they're going for $40 a piece. So technically, market makers don't have to fully hedge out for the 650 strike with 9,500 in open interest until AMC is $6.90 per share. AMC is $6.60 per share. So from here, the premiums are going to be a lot cheaper. So you're going to have to see a lot more hedging happen much quicker, right? If AMC come Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday starts to break above $7 per share, call it $7.20, $7.30, you're going to see a lot of instantaneous hedging, which could continue to drive up AMC. Now, 750 strike about 8,500 for open interest. At the $8 strike, you have about 8,600 for open interest, and then you drop to about 3,300, 7,200, and then 1,700 at the 950 strike. And then at that $10 strike, you have about 32,000 for open interest. Would control about 3.2 million shares. So even though you don't have huge option numbers as far as the overall expiration for this Friday, you are seeing a lot of it concentrated either barely in the money or barely out of the money. And I think that could give you or help contribute to, you know, a $1, $1.50, $2 move potentially to the upside. Now keep in mind, don't get too far ahead of ourselves. We have Fed Jerome Powell, the congressional testimony, and that is going to be basically the most important thing. That is going to be essentially back in 2022 when all of the fear started, it was because of this very thing. So it's going to throw a curveball in a lot of this information. Now, I think we're at a moment in time where the Fed doesn't want to keep pushing the economy into slower and slower territory, but at the same time, inflation's starting to go higher again, and they need to make sure expectations are tame and inflation expectations don't go higher. So I think you're going to get, believe it or not, a decent amount of back and forth out of this that could cause big moves both Tuesday and Wednesday, and that's really the big wild card here, because that is, again, something we don't know. We don't know what Fed Jerome Powell is going to say. We don't know if that could cause AMC to rally 20% or drop 10% in a day. That's kind of what I'm expecting. I think this could be a huge pivotal moment for the Fed in 2023 to really set the expectations for the whole year, like Jerome Powell did in 2022. So this is not new, right? Fed Jerome Powell used this same congressional hearing in 2022 to set the expectations that furthermore caused the NASDAQ to drop 35% at the lows, caused the S&P to drop about 22% at the lows. So pretty substantial. Now, let's talk about this whole vote. Right. And we had some people in the last video, which I highly recommend you guys watch that video if you have not already. We kind of break this down in more detail and talk about it a little bit more. But pretty much the only reason, quote unquote, the only reason there's so many shorts piling into AMC right now, maybe it's to see you lose all your money. Maybe it's because they hate retail investors. Who knows? But the only logical reason why the short interest is so high is because this is a quote-unquote no-brainer arbitrage trade, which means they are shorting AMC, they are buying APE, only in anticipation that this merger is going to go through. If this merger does go through, in theory, AMC should fall, APE should rise, they should somewhat meet in the middle, right? So you're looking at it easy like 20-30%. Well, if that same theory is correct, if this vote does not happen, a lot of those shorts don't want to be short in AMC. It was simply a trade, right? So you would see shorts instantly cover on their short positions. That is like playing, maybe some of you guys can relate to this, a pharmaceutical stock, right? Pharmaceutical company that is going for FDA approval. Well, maybe you buy the stock because you're hoping this new drug is going to be great. Then FDA approval gets denied. What always happens to the stock? It always falls, right? Because it's negative. It's not why you were in the trade. Same thing goes for this, but it's different, right? It's not in the case of pharma stock dropping. It's the case of AMC rising because a lot of people would have been wrong. And what was expected to happen, this merger, did not happen. So that would instantly cause a short squeeze. Now, to the degree, to the extent of how that short squeeze played out, how high AMC went, now that is up in the air. And that is something that you and me could both try to figure out. But it's ultimately something we would not know. It's hard to tell. That's why we like to look at technicals. We like to look at other factors to try to come to this assessment of where AMC could go. And I have pretty high expectations if this vote does not go through. And I think rightfully so. Now, what I have been trying to make very clear for everyone is that even if this vote comes back as a yes, we're not going to know if it's actually going to happen until at least April 27th. Most court proceedings don't end on the preliminary hearing, the essentially first time you go to court to see if there's a case here. Most of the time, there is a case. And I think in AMC's, stance, investor stance, pension funds, these people suing AMC, there's a reasonable, case to be had here. It's not really benefiting your investors. AMC as a business does not need to do it. Long story short, we're probably not going to know definitively, yes, if this is going to happen, if it comes back as a yes for a while. If it comes back as a no, we're instantly going to know this is not going to happen. Now, keep in mind, there is a clause that will be voted on as well that basically says if this does not pass the first time, it will come up for another vote. But at that point, just depending on what the numbers look like, if we get the numbers for, percentages voted yes, voted no, it's probably not going to go through if it doesn't happen the first time. So there you have kind of both of those sides. Now, if it does go through, all hope is not lost. The fact is, lots of shorts are short on AMC. That's a fact. One of the strongest things that I like to remind myself is that everyone knows about AMC. Everyone is waiting for this trade. It's not just some penny stock out there. It's not just some random stock. It's something that literally dominated the news, like mainstream media, like your CNN, your local news, right? Everyone was talking about this. People that had never heard of or cared about stocks were hearing about AMC and GameStop short squeezing. You had literal families buying into these different trades, not to mention pension funds, hedge funds, mutual funds, money managers, just alike, combine them all into a group. There's a lot of power in that. And I do think ultimately that means a short squeeze is coming, whether it comes from this, whether it comes from that, whether it comes from whatever else down the line. That's ultimately why I'm long in AMC. And now that you are getting the technicals that are really starting to look favorable here, the risk to reward looks a lot better, especially as you are so low compared to, where AMC has been over the last couple of years. You are now in a very bullish uptrend, and this has not been the case since June. And you're also at the same level you were at before that June rally. So in theory here, just this theorize with me, if Fed Jerome Powell does pave the way for the market environment to be more bullish, if this vote gets voted as a no, or if it gets voted as a yes, and it takes months and months and months to get a definitive answer with cost to borrow rates in the 300% range, the lack of the availability to get hands on AMC in this arbitrage trade starting to look doubtful, consider the massive amount of option activity that is likely hiding a lot of short interest, you can start to see a very reasonable path to getting AMC stock much higher from here, right, over the next couple of weeks, next month or two. So I think that is also very exciting. And I think everyone should be on the same page. If you would choose to invest in this or you don't, that is totally up to you. I'm not a financial advisor. Do what you have to do. If you can't afford to lose money, you shouldn't invest it. You don't start a restaurant or do any other investment at all and expect to 100% make money. There's always that chance that you will not. And same thing is true with investing in anything. So that is it for this video, guys. Hopefully you learned something. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. If you also want to come trade with me live in real time, it's going to be another very exciting week in the stock market. Your place to do that is down below, linked in the description. Come join the community. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.